The AI Today podcast, produced by Cognilytica, cuts through the
podcast. I'm your host, Kathleen Mulch.
And I'm your host, Ron Schmelzer. And we've heard from many of you as we've been doing our AI Today podcast since 2017. So we're like well over 300 episodes. We're doing them now twice, sometimes even 3 times a week. We've heard from so many of you on so many of the topics, whether it's our glossary series, which is ongoing and will keep going for a while. Some of you said that was great. Some of you have said it's too much. So we'll balance it out. We're going to keep going. We're not going to stop it, but we'll mix it up a bit. We'll spice it up for those of you that maybe think you know everything about AI, or maybe don't really want to know anything more about AI, or really are bored by our AI Glossary podcast, or for those of you that really do enjoy the Glossary podcast, but maybe want something else too, like a little extra stuff. This is why we are interspersing additional interviews, our generative AI series on what does generative AI mean in terms of actually making it work, both from a trustworthy perspective and a project perspective. And of course, our trustworthy AI series, which we're well in the middle of here, where we're trying to guide folks to understand all the different layers involved in trustworthy AI. So keep reaching out to us. And yeah, we're going to dig some deeper into trustworthy AI in this one.
Exactly. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to AI Today so you can get notified of all of the upcoming episodes that we have in this series, as well as some of the other ones that Ron had talked about. And we will make sure to link to previous podcasts in this series. So if you'd like to listen to any of them, you can. On one podcast, we talked about, trustworthy AI really has 5 main layers. And that's societal ethical AI, responsible AI, systemic AI, transparency, AI governance, and then AI explainability and interpretability. We felt it was important to share that at a high level, but then we wanted to spend some time digging deeper into each of these levels. So on today's podcast, we're going to be talking more about responsible AI. And this begs the question, okay, well, what is responsible AI? And basically, responsible AI is different than ethical AI. So responsible AI is saying, if you're going to do it, then do it the right way, where ethical AI really is kind of that right from wrong. So when you're building responsible AI systems, some of this should seem kind of like, well, duh, that's a no-brainer. But you'd be surprised that sometimes people don't think about it this way, or if they do, they're not thinking about it as broadly as they need to be. So, for example, responsible AI shouldn't violate laws. Well, you may, somebody that's building the AI system says, okay, I'm going to look at laws. You're in the United States. You're going to look at laws from the United States. But if you're a global organization, you really need to be looking at all of the laws that are going to come into play. So sometimes it doesn't, you may think it's straightforward, but you actually need to look at it from a different lens. Responsible AI also shouldn't do things like violate or abuse people's privacy. We want to make sure that we're keeping people safe, we're keeping their data safe. And so as we're going about looking to, have trustworthy AI in place, these things need to be taken into consideration. Also, responsible AI shouldn't abuse or misuse AI technology. It should make people safe and secure. And that doesn't just necessarily, we talked about this from lots of different perspectives. So yes, obviously physically safe and secure, but also emotionally and mentally, financially as well. The responsible AI should provide well-defined trail for human accountability. So as you're building trustworthy AI systems, we always want to make sure that we don't have, these autonomous systems with black box technology that comes to a decision and the human wants to protest that decision or question how it came to that. And we go, sorry, we can't do that. We have no trail. So you just have to accept this and move on. So responsible AI examples that, we like to talk about. So it helps kind of understand this concept, facial recognition. Is this responsible? Is this irresponsible use of AI? Because sometimes we say the technology is neutral, but it's the application of it. And so you want to make sure, okay, the facial recognition technology is a neutral technology. How is it being used? Make sure that you're using it responsibly. So stuff like that when you're thinking, also helping users, if you have a user profile, is it going to be invasive? Do you want to make sure that you're actually using it in a responsible way? Autonomous vehicles, think about any application that you're going to be using for your organization and then say, how can I look at this with my responsible AI lens?
Yeah, I think that's a good way of thinking about it because the technology is fairly neutral. I mean, if we were creating an algorithm for making a decision, there's nothing right or wrong about it. So ethically, algorithmic decision making is like, well, it's okay, I guess. It all depends, right? That's where responsible AI comes in. It's like, well, what does it depend on? Algorithmic decision making to help you select a movie, that's perfectly fine. Algorithmic decision making that determines whether or not someone should be locked up and go to prison, we're crossing into response. It's not the same thing as recommending a movie, is it? Right? This sort of brings us to this one of the main ideas, which tends to get forgotten about, which is this idea of purposeful AI. And it may seem like a generic or vague notion. What does purposeful AI mean? It means that you have a reason, like this AI system that you're building has a reason, and whatever that reason is should be a positive one. Right? I mean, it's pretty simple, but there should be a clear user need. You shouldn't be like, well, I'm just going to do this AI system for hiring. Like, okay, what are you talking about? What are we doing with it? Well, I'm going to use it to evaluate resumes. I'm like, okay, you're still telling me what it does. You're not telling me why. Is it because you want to replace a human who's making a decision about those resumes? Well, that can be good to speed things up, but it can also be a problem if all of a sudden our workforce is starting to look a little differently here and people are causing problems. This is where we get into irresponsible use of AI. There should be a clear user need and a benefit. Implementing AI simply for the purpose of implementing AI is actually not responsible. That is a defined irresponsible use of AI. It's sort of like getting in a car and turning on the engine, shifting it into drive, and then just closing your eyes and just hitting the gas pedal. Are you driving the car? Well, let's see what happens, right? That's not responsible, right? And sometimes what may seem like a good idea really isn't. We have a couple of ripped from the headlines examples here. There was a medical chatbot that uses OpenAI's GPT-3, again, neutral. Nothing wrong with GPT-3 on its own, but it told a fake patient to go kill themselves. Not exactly responsible. Who's to blame for that? Well, you can't blame ChatGPT. What you can blame is the use of it. They used it in an irresponsible way, right? Same thing. There was an AI-powered platform called Genderify, which was shut down after bias-based backlash because you can identify the gender of your customers. I don't know what it was using, some sort of data. I'm like, okay, what was the point of this? What were we trying to accomplish with this? Nothing good, right? Another example, an algorithm that predicts criminality based on face. Okay, now we are getting into some terrible idea territory, right? This is some crap, right? I just want to be honest. If you're listening to this podcast and you're responsible for those systems, you should be kind of ashamed of yourself. But how do you know before you even build these systems that you're going down this wrong path? Well, it's because the AI implementation should be relevant to the purpose. We don't misapply it. Facial recognition for predictive analytics. Bad idea. Try to avoid Skynet. Try to avoid paperclip optimizers. And all AI systems should always be open to reevaluation. If a good idea turns out to be a bad idea, you should be able to stop it, and there should be an alternative. You shouldn't have gone so far down the path that you have no alternative. Well, we already killed the other system, so I guess this is all we have, and it's crappy. That's irresponsible. So let's not do that.
Yeah, exactly. And it was you need to make sure that it is open to evaluation and reevaluation. And when you're doing that, there was a funny story. Ron and I were at a conference a few months ago, and someone was saying, well, we'll just do things the old way. We'll go back to paper processes. Someone goes, yes, but the old way isn't the old way for